Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're a little too excited that the Texans veterans are reporting for training camp tomorrow. It's back. I'm Gregg Rosenthal, beyond lucky today to be joined in the studio by my friend, Patrick Claybon. That's right. Football is back.
It's back. And a lot of people are back on their consoles for the first time in 15 years, celebrating college football returning. But yeah, we're here, Greg. And I'm excited. I coming up later, we're gonna do some fake football stuff, which is a perfect off-season thing. But yeah, this is real life. I got travel schedules coming up. This all escalated very quickly.
It is all happening. And yeah, you mentioned EA, the college football game coming out. We have Shook on later. He is the video game expert at the company, so we might have to talk a little college football later. You mentioned fake football. It's not fantasy, although you are a fantasy expert, and we're definitely going to hit fantasy. I was back in the day, and I'm back. I'm back in the fantasy game. I am in an actual league for the second time. I took about 12 years off and joined a league with a friend of mine last year. And so yeah, we'll talk fantasy throughout the season. But this isn't really that kind of fantasy. This is an important moment on this show's history in which we're going to determine if you were going to take one player in the NFL and clone that player and put him at every single position on offense and defense to win the most amount of games. Which player would you choose? We're going to have a little draft later.
It's going to be fun.
I also am excited because the news is starting to pick up, and today, not all of it's great news, I have to admit, but every day this week, we're going to be starting each day with the news, and let's get going.
It would take you 6 hours to download this podcast if you were doing dial-up. Shout out to anybody who remembers that, by the way.
I do. That was like late middle school and high school for me. And yeah, it's a little jarring to hear Joe Buck. I have to get used to that, but I do like it. I don't like what we're starting the news today, but it really was the biggest football item to happen over the weekend and into Monday, which related to Jordan Addison, the Vikings wide receiver, who was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence on Friday near LAX here in Los Angeles. The California Highway Patrol Police confirmed to our website, NFL.com. They revealed that there was a disabled vehicle blocking lanes on I-105, and that was what they told us, that an officer arrived to the scene. A white Rolls Royce was spotted with Addison asleep behind the wheel, and then he was arrested. Shortly thereafter, the Vikings released a statement saying they were aware of the arrest, and this is the second consecutive offseason. Addison's encountered a legal issue on the road. Last July, he was cited for speeding and reckless driving in Minnesota for going 140 miles in a 55-mile-an-hour zone.
It should go without saying, don't drink and drive. I think that's the easiest and most responsible reaction that a lot of people have, right, is anger and frustration. We lose people every day. And this is, again, as you mentioned, the second incident. The first time it was just speeding. He was driving 140 miles an hour. Jordan Addison has got to figure out how he's going to comport himself in a vehicle. I would make the case that he shouldn't be behind the wheel of a vehicle at all at this point. Not just from the standpoint of, protecting himself. It's from the standpoint of protecting everybody. And we have seen time and time again that these situations, not just with him, but with so many people keep reproducing themselves, that it gets past the point of personal responsibility. It's kind of on everybody else that's in the vicinity of these people. If you're serving these people, if you're around these people when they're drinking, to do everything you can to keep them from getting behind the wheel of that car. It's really frustrating. I really don't know what else to say.
Yeah, there isn't much to say other than this is where the NFL will begin to look at the situation, and we'll see if there's any punishment. There was not last year off of that incident. Now this is two different incidents, and it's heartbreaking for it to happen just days after Addison's teammate Kyrie Jackson, a fourth-round pick, died along with two high school teammates in a car accident where they struck by another car. That was a situation where the investigators there believe alcohol may have been a contributing circumstance in the fatal crash, and that remains under investigation. So R.I.P. to Kyrie Jackson, and we'll see what's next for Jordan Addison. But just considering where he is in terms of his importance to that offense, that really was the most noteworthy thing to happen. Less noteworthy, but very interesting has been Davante Adams' summer, really week of just kind of getting out there, which I appreciate as we're getting into training camp. He's given us a lot to talk about. Let's listen to him on the Up and Adams show with FanDuel with Kay Adams.
Oh, he's in that ear, that's for sure. he's in the ear, but it's not as easy as it. Obviously we can get together and talk about the old times and potential of doing this and that, but like I said, I'm a Raider, and he knows that. So we'll maybe in the next lifetime.
So people picked up the first part of this quote, which is about Aaron Rodgers, and she asked him, because there's just been a lot of conversation, would these two ever get back together, even at the golf tournament over the weekend, the celebrity golf tournament? Is this going to happen? And if you watch Adams on receiver, which I've only seen clips, but it didn't seem thrilled with how last season was going. But it just doesn't feel like it's something that could realistically happen, whether Aaron Rodgers wants it to or not.
No, and there was a couple of moments in that interview, and you heard it in that clip where Davante said, "As I said." It's a thing that he's saying. It's a refrain. I am a Raider. He also said, there's nothing I could do about it if they ship me off somewhere. But I am a Raider is the Davante Adams quote. And if you do watch the receiver, I think, did you see the clip that I saw? Because I haven't watched the show either. But it's Davante, again, playing a lot. He's running a lot of routes. He is absolutely by himself on a corner route, and Jimmy G airmails him, and he goes to the sideline, and he's like, "This is ridiculous. I've got to get out of here." I think seeing those moments may make you feel that, because Davante playing the football game is different than him thinking about and making decisions, right? I think the whole team was frustrated. It's a different situation. But in terms of a reunion, I don't think Davante needs Aaron Rodgers. He just needs competent offense and quarterback play.
I don't know if he's going to get that, but one of the most fascinating clips from that show was he was quoted saying, "I signed off on that when Jimmy Garoppolo gets benched, and that's just the reality of it." I mean, I'm sure they're just keeping him in the mix. They're making that decision, but he said, "I love Jimmy. He's a great guy. Something had to happen in order for us to have a chance down the stretch and for me to remain a Raider, in all honesty." And that's not in the moment.
No,
that's later that week. So that's for me. He said Jimmy Garoppolo had to get benched for him to remain a Raider. That's kind of
cool. Well, anybody with eyes, right, could see that it wasn't necessarily working out with Jimmy in Las Vegas. And it just makes sense because Davante has been a very productive player. The only season he's played more snaps in his career than last season was his first season with the Raiders. Like, he's playing a lot of football, and the Raiders have been bad. So, yeah, it's frustrating. But you can see a reason that he wants change. I think that would be obvious.
Yeah, on a positive note, he seemed like a fan of Aiden O'Connell on that show from what I saw. And then he was on FS1 Speak last week as well. And he said he thought it was Aiden's job to lose because he was there before, and that's the way it was. He was running with the ones more, talking about OTAs. He says, until Gardner comes in and takes it from him, I think it's Aiden's job. I'm sure that's true, but him even saying that to me says he likes it, the cut of Aiden O'Connell's jib, and I'm not surprised that Aiden O'Connell is a little more impressive in the offseason environment. And if he wasn't a fourth-round pick, if he was like a second-round pick, we would have looked at his rookie year and been like, yeah, that's pretty good. So,
but the red lettering to me on that quote is until, right?
Right.
It's like, it feels like he feels like it has a chance at least.
Well, he knows it's not up to him, and Gardner Minshew is making a lot of money. Also making a lot of money, but maybe not as much as he hopes, is T. Higgins. He did not sign his long-term deal by Monday. So July 15th is normally a noteworthy day in the NFL calendar because it's the deadline for franchise tag players to sign their long-term deals, and he did not get a long-term deal. He's due to make $21.8 million under that franchise tag, which, not bad considering what he made over the last 4 years, but not great compared to what other receivers out there are making. The crazy thing, Patrick, with this deadline was he was the only franchise tag player who's still on the tag. Shout out to the NFL front offices. I've always had a problem with the franchise tag that these guys are getting shortchanged. It's really not free agency. And yet, Josh Hines-Allen, we covered with Mina that Josh Allen for the Jaguars is changed his name in honor of his mother's side of the family. Josh Hines-Allen, Justin Matabike, Michael Pittman, Jalen Johnson, Antoine Winfield, all got long-term deals, and Brian Burns and L'Jarius Sneed got traded and got long-term deals. So it's like, okay, maybe if this is the new norm, that's good for NFL.
Yeah, it feels kind of shifting in between because it's always going to be a cost control metric, right? And a tool to kind
Right,
of.
they would do better if they were just free agents.
Yeah.
To be clear,
Yeah.
a little better.
But it seems like it's reaching a mid ground between like, oh, this is purely to keep players from making more money, and hey, we ultimately do want to keep these guys around. And I think the way that this played out, it kind of feels obvious that the Bengals would like to have T. Higgins this year. They're not going to have him after that, and T recognizes that, and this was the most kind of obvious way for it to play out.
Yeah, I saw a national reporter suggest this week, like, well, it's not as easy for the Bengals to get a deal done now after all these other receiver deals happened out there. And I'm thinking they knew where it was going.
T. Higgins has been on the Bengals for so
Right. They knew where it was going. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said at the Combine, we are going to make Justin Jefferson the highest paid non-quarterback in history. They knew all these receiver contracts were going. They don't want to pay it for them, which is their right. And he will get that money like Jesse Bates will elsewhere. I think there are Bengals fans out there that are hoping something else possibly happens. Tagging him for a second straight year, if you were the Bengals, actually isn't that bad business, but would be unfortunate for T. Higgins. But he just needs to stay healthy, and he will get a crazy deal next year. More than he probably would have if the Bengals were going to give him a long-term deal this year.
And also, if they were going to do 2 consecutive tags, then you could have packaged together an offer, right?
Right.
That's 2 years that makes sense for both parties.
Right.
They didn't.
It's what they've done in the past, and it's one of the difficult things with the salary cap. It depends which team you are, but we're seeing this in the NBA too. You do have to make choices, and Jamar Chase is going to get that big contract. In my mind, I believe he will, and it is tough to fit it all in. Some Falcons news this week. I thought this was an interesting quote. Got a lot of pop. Zach Robinson, the new offensive coordinator, was quoted saying, Kyle Pitts is, quote, basically learning 2 positions, wide receiver and tight end. Is it finally the year for Kyle Pitts?
I think it's the year. And I know that there's people who are delving into the lineup stats, and they saw how much Kyle Pitts lined up wide last year, is 29%. And things didn't necessarily go great when he was lined out wide. But I think the important context there is Kyle Pitts was hurt for a majority of the season. And when that's your body type, a big, physical, fast guy, and he's out there doing something that people his size normally don't do, when you're hurt, it's more difficult to do that. And then we go back to year 2, and he had more uncatchable passes than anybody in the entire NFL. And so it's more, I think it's easier to see rookie year, 1,000-yard receiver Kyle Pitts than it is to see the guy that we've gotten the last 2 years. The outcomes, because it's clearly the same person, but he was hurt, and then the team was kind of in disarray.
Yeah, he just needs to be healthy. Because he also wasn't, that mover on the field last year. And that's partly why I think it didn't go well. But this got popped for like, oh, wow, he's got to be more of a receiver now. I just did the calculations while you were talking, Patrick, although I was paying attention.
Yeah, no.
He only was an inline tight end 22% of the time last year. He was in the slot a good chunk of it, and out wide even more than he was an inline tight end. So he is a wide receiver, and I'm excited. I'm excited to watch him in that offense with a better quarterback who loves to throw the ball, 2 big targets, who loves to throw the ball inside. As long as he's healthy, to me, that's just it, because he just wasn't moving the same as he did. But it already did happen. It happened his rookie year. It was one of the best rookie year tight end seasons we've ever seen. A little bit of broadcast news before we talk about Jacoby Jones and Monte Kiffin unfortunately passing away over the weekend. But I did want to just hit you with a couple little things. Bill Belichick is joining Inside the NFL. That's wild. It's going to be Ocho Cinco, Chris Long, and Ryan Clark. And then the Fox announced their broadcast teams. There weren't like huge headlines here, but we know Greg Olsen moving down to number 2. He's going to be with Joe Davis. Adam Amin bumped up to the 3 spot with Mark Sanchez. So Mark Sanchez bumped up. A little disappointed for Kevin Kugler. I liked him on the play-by-play. He's down at 5 now with Daryl Johnston. So they're moving guys around. Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma still at 4. I'm into this stuff, so I just wanted to point that out. Little love for Sanchez, who was on the show here once. He got bumped up a spot or 2.
They contextualize the way the most people in the world engage with football, and so it's important. It's important to them.
And it's also a depth chart, which I just kind of like that broadcast teams like have to tell.
Is that for
the last group? Like they have to tell Chris Myers and Schlereth, you're 6, you're number 6, you moved up or down. I don't know if that's necessary, but
no.
but I know
But
it
yeah,
now.
why do we have access to that?
And yeah, it was.
Seems weird.
It is weird. I love that Belichick had to like be part of this kind of like funny social clip. I'm curious how they'll use him, if he'll be actually in a studio with them or if he has a deal kind of, because NFL Films produces that where they just throw it to him and he's doing a really cool film session somewhere else, which would be awesome. I will watch Inside the NFL. I was not a regular viewer last year, although I did kind of want to see how Jay Cutler's was doing. And once at least, and I guess he's not on the show anymore. So Belichick is replaced.
Bounced for Bill.
That's too bad. Finally, I did just mention it. Some sad news in the NFL this season. Lost a couple great individuals, Jacoby Jones and Monte Kiffin. Let's start with Jacoby Jones, who died peacefully at the age of 40. His family released in a statement through the NFLPA. Played 9 seasons, 4 different teams. Including 5 seasons with the Texans who drafted him, and then 3 with the Ravens, where he was an All-Pro and a Super Bowl and playoff hero.
Yeah, 3 days after his 40th birthday, Jacoby Jones from New Orleans, Louisiana, had that kickoff return for a touchdown in his hometown in the Super Bowl. Of course, the miracle in Denver. He was such a big part of that Super Bowl run, and a joy for everybody to talk to. And it's kind of a reminder that no matter how invincible we feel, people have got to stay up on everything. Not sure what happened, but we were robbed of a lot of years of Jacoby Jones.
Andre Johnson, his former teammate, just called him the life of the party, and that dude was so NOLA. He's so New Orleans.
Very.
I rewatched this series. It was called Untold Stories with Master Tesfatzian on Bleacher Report, and he did an episode where he was playing pool with Jacoby Jones. That was every episode where he played pool with him, and that dude is just so New Orleans, and you can see how everyone just loved that dude. And just for any listeners who don't remember that run, just quickly putting it in context, divisional round, Ravens are down 7 with 40 seconds to go. They have 70 yards to go. They need a touchdown. Jacoby Jones's speed is such that he just busts right through bracket coverage. I'm not going to call out those defensive players. I know who they were. But if they don't misjudge just this incredible speed, they very likely win that game. The Ravens Super Bowl run never happened. Joe Flacco with a beautiful ball gets it to him, 70 yards. They win in overtime. Then you get to the Super Bowl. Jacoby Jones in his hometown. This is a performance that would win MVP most years. I get why Flacco got it. I don't have a problem with that, but it would normally win MVP. He's so open in the first half. He's able to fall down, making sure he catches this pass that Flacco couldn't get everything on because he's getting pressured. Falls down to catch it, to make sure he gets it. Gets up, and then makes a couple guys miss on the way to a 58-yard touchdown. And that is before the 108-yard touchdown. And that's just an incredible run. And that was the last touchdown they scored in that game, by the way. It was 28-6 at that point. They almost did not win that game. If they did not get that touchdown, they do not win that game. And yeah, all the memories of him and John Harbaugh had a great memory of remembering Jacoby talking to his mom in the end zone during a snowstorm against the Vikings. And right after he talks to his mom, he takes one to the house. He was a legend. And Monte Kiffin was a legend too. Didn't want to miss this, that he passed away at the age of 84. Just one of the most influential defensive coordinators of my lifetime. Football Outsiders has been measuring defense for, I think they've gone back at least 30-something years now. And the 2002 Bucs were the best defense they've ever recorded. Here were their rankings, by the way, in efficiency and DVOA during that stretch. 2nd, 5th, 2nd, 1st. That's the all-time year.
Yeah.
3rd, couple more top 10s, couple more top 6s. I mean, that is a long run, and everyone that played for him just spoke of what a fatherly, great teacher he was, and just what a presence. And he definitely changed the game. Like, only so many people change the game. I think he should be a Hall of Famer for what he did.
Yeah, like Tony Dungy kind of laughs it off, right? When people credit the Tampa too. He's like, Bud Carson and Chuck Noll kind of brought it to me. And that's where me and Monte came up with this thing. But for most of us, like, we hear Tampa too, and we think Monte Kiffin and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And so just in the way that, going through the seasons and communicating with media, communicating with fans, it brought a greater understanding of football. He wasn't just coaching the team; he was a part of coaching us as well. And it's just a legend.
And a guy I always just appreciated from Dungy and Kiffin when Dungy left to go to Indianapolis because Kiffin stayed there, of course, with John Gruden. That number one best defense of all time was with John Gruden as the head coach and Kiffin at really running the defense. I just appreciated that they could handle one of the most personality-filled locker rooms on earth. They weren't afraid of that. They embraced it. Like sometimes it got too much, but Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, and John Lynch, and just that whole crew, Ronde Barber, like they welcomed everyone. They did a great job coaching them up. So rest in peace to Monte Kiffin and Jacoby Jones. We're going to come back after the break, and we're going to do one of the most important things we will ever do on NFL Daily. This back on NFL Daily, and we needed something regal.
Oh.
We needed something that said, your life's about to change. We're going to solve one of the greatest questions you can ask. What player would you draft of any NFL player right now if you had to clone them and put them at every position on the NFL field and win a game?
22 times. One of them is going to have to kick, perhaps punt, depending on your offensive strategy. And that's the beauty of this completely preposterous hypothetical idea, disregarding all the moral implications of cloning people.
No, yeah, we don't want to think about that.
But essentially, and because I don't want to run afoul of any massive corporate entities, I will call this the prefaced, right? Because again, apologies in advance. I celebrate the entire fictional universe surrounding books, movies, television shows, and Star Wars. I think people know that. So this is the large-scale conflict between replicated individuals.
Okay, large-scale conflict between
because you could call it a war, right? You could call it clones. We're just like the Super Bowl week. We're the only people that can say Super Bowl, and you have to watch cringe television where they call it the big game. I'm going to be extra safe because that's where I am right now. We are going to draft. I'll give Gregg the first overall pick.
Wow, you're just making that decision that I have the first pick. I like you taking charge. And this was Patrick's idea, and I thought I want everyone to come to this show with ideas, and it is a perfect idea this week. And I am going to go first. I kind of wanted you to because I was very curious where you go. But I am going to go first. I should hide my draft board from you.
Over here.
And again, you're going to line them up on the offensive line. You're going to line them up at tight end. You can go two tight ends if you want.
Your offense is up to you.
But you're going to have some line play. You're going to have them at quarterback. And so my first pick in this clone draft, replicated individuals draft, whatever. Josh Allen. And so here's where I started.
Okay.
Number one, quarterbacks are still important in this game of football. And so to me, the ultimate player here, and I'm not going to pick all quarterbacks because that would be boring, but the ultimate player here would be a quarterback that also has size so that they can hold up. They're going to have to play defense. They're going to have to play the offensive line. And they're going to need some want to, I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna want to have to get dirty, and Josh Allen's gonna have to want to block for Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's gonna have to. And I'm not talking about Joshua Hines Allen.
No,
Josh Allen's gonna have to get after the quarterback, and no matter what clone team you put against him, he's gonna have to cover. And I just thought of all the possible options, and I went through different quarterbacks, and maybe you'll draft one, maybe you won't. He wasn't the first one I thought of, but the more and more I thought about it, I thought he would have the desire. I thought, obviously, he can play the quarterback. We're going to need to run the ball quite a bit. And I think he could handle the other positions better in aggregate than any other quarterback out there. He's my number one overall pick.
When we initially did this exercise, right, it was, I believe, in 2018.
Okay.
And from 2011 to 2019, Cameron Jarrell Newton was the obvious answer.
Yes.
The obvious answer to this exercise, I think, all time. Cam has a very good case. Josh Allen is it right now. So you've taken my number one overall selection.
Because it took me a while to get there. Look, the dumbest thing I've ever said on the show, maybe not that dumb, because it was like I said a lot of dumb things, but first couple of years, I kept saying, "Oh, Josh Allen could be a poor man's Cam Newton if he ever got there." And so I was thinking that way. Now, I have to admit, even as a Cam Newton fan, he has gotten there and excelled and exceeded whatever I expected. But very similar players. I think the most similar to Cam of any player that's come along since.
Yeah, and hopefully the Bills don't run him into the ground and he's got a busted shoulder.
His durability was part of it too. I thought of other potential physical quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson and stuff, and I thought, you know what, Josh Allen, I've seen him out there year after year, and he's just always that dude.
Okay, and I had the potential again to have multiple quarterbacks.
Yes.
On my board, but I think for the sake of playing out this large-scale conflict between replicated individuals, I'm going to have to take a defender off the board. We see him in multiple sports, right? The athleticism is there. It's clear. And I think our offense may suffer, but our defense is going to be very difficult, specifically for the Josh Allen teams, right? Your Anthony Richardson teams to deal with. So with the second pick in the large-scale conflict between replicated individuals, I would like to take Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, he's on my board. I think if you're running, and I think you're going to have to on offense,
we're running
a triple option type of offense. I mean, 3 Myles Garretts would be pretty crazy. If you're hiking it to Garrett and he's got Garrett next to him and then Garrett on the other side, and you got to have a lot of faith in your coaching, but this was going to be my pitch because Garrett is on my board. It's funny we went in the same place. I just think because he's going to be almost impossible to score on, but I do think that offense could work.
The offense could work. Clearly, we're going to try to slow the game down, depending on the matchup, right? Because you go up against one of these OL teams, right? Things can get very dicey. But I do think we're running the ball, and it's man across the board.
Yeah,
we're just going to try to out athlete you. If you watch the Myles Garrett basketball highlights, it's terrorizing. It's fear inducing. And so that's why after you took my first pick, I will go with Myles Garrett at number 2.
I think the 2 scariest positions, most impressive in real life when you see them in our defense, are ultimately a great edge rusher and then actually a great tight end. If you see them in real life, you're like, those are the 2 scariest, best athletes. And so you picked the scariest and best athlete of them all at that position. I want to watch that team. I'm sad he's off my board. I'm scrambling. But I'm going to take Penei Sewell with my second pick.
We spend too much time together.
We've seen him. I mean, this guy can move. You mentioned the offensive line teams. There's a couple options, but Penei Sewell is my first tackle that I would choose because the hands are silky. They're soft. We've seen him move in space. 5 Penei Sewells on the offensive line is just preposterous. We're going to be able to run the ball, and I think Penei Sewell could run the ball.
Yeah, it creates difficulty for my potential cornerback teams because I did think that there were some big corners. I don't know that they can compete with the Penei Sewell team or the Myles Garrett team, but it becomes that much more difficult considering run scheme and versatility. And it makes me think about the absurd arm length conversations.
Well, if the rules are the same in the replicated individuals league, you throw the Josh Allen team. I don't know if there's a cornerback and wide receiver team. I mean, it's still going to be tough for Penei to get, hands on those wide receivers. Now, can the Penei quarterback have enough time to fight? It's going to be an issue.
Yeah. Well, is he throwing the ball? Is our
That's
second
true.
question.
I guess he's not much.
It's probably not. And so it's one of those things, and styles make fights. But some of these teams aren't just good. They're just not going to be able to compete. And that's why with my second pick,
Okay.
and I believe it's probably going to be on your board as well, I will take George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. Because, again, in this league, the run game is paramount. Because there are several teams that just aren't going to be able to throw the ball. I don't know how much we've seen. There's social clips of George Kittle throwing the ball. I think he could get it out there to George Kittle.
I love the research you did.
Very well, but I also think it provides us with a well-rounded team that may not be able to beat everybody, but they will be in games.
I agree. The want to will be there. I think he would embrace this challenge. And him as a clone would also, his clones would embrace this challenge. And yet, a lot of injuries coming off a core muscle surgery injury even right now. I don't know if that's part of this world. He is older. If you're giving me year 2 George Kittle, just some miles on him, I don't know if the speed is going to be there for you. I actually am going to go to one of his teammates then. I'm going to go Fred Warner. So I did want to have, and I went a pretty heavy offense, but I wanted to have one team that just had the best chance of locking you down on defense. I don't know if that's Myles Garrett. I think if you had 11 Fred Warners, what aren't you stopping? He's going to get to the pass rusher. We know he's going to be good in coverage. We've seen that. His end-to-end speed is just insane. He has sort of solved a problem that about 28 teams have out there of like, what do we do with the entire middle of the field? If you have Fred Warner, you've solved it. Imagine having 11 Fred Warners. I don't know what he can do on offense, obviously, but he's kind of in that middle range like a Josh Allen, where like he's big enough that he could protect for Fred Warner. He's fast enough he could move at the ball, and yet it's all about the defense. I think this is the number one defense in the replicated individuals league.
It's a tough bet to argue with. I had a linebacker that was on my board as well, because the play recognition for Fred Warner is when he has 10 people who are not Fred Warner on the field. What's it look like when Fred Warners are just doing their job?
Right.
And not covering for everybody else?
Well, what does it look like when all 11 know what you're going to do?
It's preposterous.
Myles Garrett. Yeah, you're going to fool me, 11 Myles Garretts. Forget it. Fred Warner knows.
But that's the beauty of the triple option. And just how perhaps Myles throws an option pass in there. The Fred Warners do have to score as well, which makes things difficult, and leads me to, and you could say I'm cheating, right? And people say that it's cheating in the fantasy world. I think this discussion would be silly to not include one Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. Did I get you? Did I snipe you?
I actually wish I took him earlier. I just figured there's no way this Taysom hater is going to go with what's an obvious choice.
Some of what might have felt like Taysom,
he might have gone higher.
Perhaps some latent frustration, wanting Alvin Kamara to get that seventh touchdown, and Taysom for some reason scoring it might have leached over a little bit.
That's a great pick.
But I think in terms of what we're doing, we are replicating individuals. Taysom Hill has done more in more spots than most people. Got to have him on my team.
I've loved the Taysom Hill journey. He's a player we argued about on Around the NFL. Like the minute he came out, Chris just thought he was changing the game, that he was the most valuable player on the Saints, like in that playoff game against the Vikings. And he was up there. And I was like you, I was maybe pushing back against some of the hype. And I got to say, like, as the years have gone on and you've seen him do more and more, and yeah, he was never going to be a quarterback. The only thing I was mad about was Sean Payton selling us a bill of goods that this guy wasn't.
Yeah.
But what he is freaking incredible, and a guy that is unlike anyone else in the league. And we see him as a gunner. We see him as a return man. We see him as a tight end. He's pretty darn effective in all those. Why not put him on defense? I'm mad. He maybe should have gone higher. I just thought I could slide him through to the end. I'm going to take someone then I don't want to fall any further. It's Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Look, it's going to be a running league, but you want to at least have the option to pass. You know who leads the NFL in completion percentage with at least 9 throws over the last 8 years?
I got to guess. Is it Derrick Henry?
It's Derrick Henry. He's 7 for 9. Fun with stats. 4 touchdowns. I mean, that's unbelievable. He's thrown a touchdown in almost 50% of his passes. He's hitting 77%, and I think he's still got the juice. I think we're going to be able to run the ball, and I think he's got the agility. He's gotten better at receiver that he could hold up on defense. And again, it's the want to.
Yeah, it's especially the way that the draft board has shaken out. I think some of your concerns with Derrick Henry on defense are kind of alleviated, and the offense, the potential, right, is just a whole lot of different. Especially if you're coming off a win against, against Penei Sewell, and you're thinking, oh yeah, we could stop the run. It's a whole different situation playing 11 Derrick Henrys. So it's one of those situations where 4 years ago, oh my God,
right?
Now
fair.
He might have come back a little bit, but not that much. I think Derrick Henry still has some mileage left. With this pick, I don't know how many more picks we're gonna do.
You're gonna have one more
One more. This is my last one.
after this one.
Oh, after this one. Well, then I'll
We're
take
taking 5 each.
Okay, I will take my offensive lineman. I will have Tristan Wirfs, who ran that 4.80 at 326 pounds. I'm taking it.
Yeah, I think this league is going to be a lot of fun. Again, the last picks in the large-scale conflict between replicated individuals draft is coming right up. But I love just how O-line Twitter would really embrace this league. They would believe that they would come out on top, and I think they'd have a better chance. Like, their over-under is 6.5 wins, and people might be sleeping on the Penei Sewell and Tristan Wirfs teams. I'm wrapping up my draft. You really have taken a lot of my board. But who are the best athletes? I think it might be cornerbacks. So I'm just going to go with athletes here, and I'm going to go with Jalen Ramsey. And I wanted a physical cornerback that can hold up at least enough. And obviously the weakness is going to be on the lines in just going against some of these bigger teams. But in a league like this, you have 11 of the best athletes on the field. If I had to pick one position that's maybe just pure best athlete, I think it's cornerback. Plus, it'd be a little crazy. I just feel like the cornerback teams would be fun. I'm going Jalen Ramsey as my last pick.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense. And I do want to address like a travesty from last season where Will Levis runs into Jalen Ramsey and goes absolutely nowhere. his I'm going to say it, his momentum completely came to a stop.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation was like, oh, Will Levis trucked Jalen Ramsey. Go back and watch. He didn't go anywhere.
Remember, he went down.
He went straight down. And so, yeah, Jalen was on the board, and I'll follow up with my last pick because I do think defensive backs need love. I was going to take Jalen Ramsey, but I'll take another Florida State defensive back in Derwin James. And because it kind of gets slept on, kind of forget about Derwin out here in Los Angeles, considering the way that the defense has gone. But you just, a big, fast, versatile defensive back, we got to have them in the league. And I believe
it's good for the league.
Play. Yeah.
I agree. Patrick Peterson, maybe when he was younger, would have been a fun one. He could throw the ball a little bit. I was trying to find guys who could maybe throw it. I don't know if Jalen Ramsey can do that. I don't care.
Yeah.
This is going to be an important exercise that we track throughout the season. Yeah, come to us. Let us know which large-scale conflict between replicated individuals team
I should have gone with a shorter name.
that you think did better. So we'll put that maybe out on social. You have the email address, nfldaily@gmail.com. It's been a pleasure, Patrick. I'm going to welcome in Nick Wesseling to finish out that show. Little surprise, little nice, fun little after dinner. So I'm going to say goodbye to you, but it's a big week for Patrick here on the show. You will be back tomorrow, so looking forward to that.
I'll be back.
We'll be back with Nick Wesseling after the break. Welcome back to NFL Daily. So excited for today's after dinner mint. Just that little something special to finish the show out with my friend Nick Wesseling. Nick wearing the FC Cincinnati jersey. I don't know. We're taping here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, Nick, and you're obviously such a big part of Around the NFL that I just wanted you to be part of this show too. And I knew it's either you or Phil, and I love Phil, but I love having you on because you're going to give Phil a ton of grief for the fact that you're on and he's not.
Well, yeah, I'm sporting the FC Cincinnati jersey because Columbus, third place right now. You know who's at the top of the table? The real hometown team, FC Cincinnati.
No, nobody knows. That's not fair. MLS has a lot of fans, but our focus has been on Copa. It's been on Euro. It's let's be real. It's been on launching the show and my family and Wimbledon. And I don't know. It makes me happy to see your face, Nick. And we've talked over the last couple of weeks. And so I wanted to talk to you on air because, I want you to be part of this show. And I know you'll be sporting the hell out of Dan and Mark, too, with what they do. And it's cool to just see your face. And I thought we'd talk a little Bengals because like Chris, and look, if you're a new listener or you came along late in the process, obviously Nick's brother and my great friend Chris Wesseling who's no longer with us, made a dossier giving up his Bengals fandom more than 20-something years ago. And like Chris, you pretend you're not really a Bengals fan, but your wife is a diehard fan, and you have the second coming in Joe Burrow, and he's arrived. Like, what is the Bengals feeling, and will you admit that you actually do care?
Well, I mean, I do care. I would call myself a casual fan. I wouldn't insult the real fans by saying that I'm a fan, because I wasn't there through all the tough times the way a lot of people in Cincinnati were. Now, there's a lot to be excited about. I wondered how Chris would feel about this team. He got all the talent in the world, but they haven't been able to keep Joe Burrow upright. They get him killed every year. It's frustrating to some extent. So you wonder, are they going to be able to protect? They've invested a ton of money into the offensive line. They have the talent around him. He's the guy. So what are we doing here? Is this going to be the year or not?
You tell me. I mean, they have invested on the offensive line. They've tried. And I don't think that was really the reason he was struggling last year, was all offensive line play. Just a couple injuries, didn't play well. And once he was playing well, he got hurt again. But you gave a lot of money to Orlando Brown Jr., you're bringing Trent Brown, you drafted Marius Mims. Like, those are three monster tackles. The thing that worries me a little bit is something we talked about earlier in the show. Is like, you're doing the Bengals thing where T. Higgins is playing one last year. And not really many teams do that sort of thing anymore. And it does give you a little bit of old Bengals vibe. But this year also gives me a, like, okay, this crew is together for maybe one last year vibe. Get it done now. We left SoFi Stadium on the night of the Super Bowl, Nick, and you were in a great mood that night. And the feeling is like, oh, they'll be back. And I think they will be with Joe Burrow. But this is the last time I think they'll be back with this particular group, especially Jamar and T together.
Yeah, it's disappointing. You would hope they could have gotten a deal done, but financially it doesn't always work out. You got to pay Chase. Obviously, Burrow signed the big deal. Do you have room to sign T. Higgins? It doesn't look like it. They drafted Burton in the third round. A mega talented guy, maybe wasn't always the most popular guy in the locker room or with the coaching staff. So we'll see how that works out. You wonder if they have a guy that can work underneath the two awesome receivers. Is that going to be Burton? It doesn't seem to fit any of the other guys. Trent Irwin did it a little bit, but I don't know if he's the real deal or not. You had Tyler Boyd, he's gone. So I don't know if the offense is gonna be the problem here. Mina Kimes kind of stole my thunder a little bit last week.
As she does,
about
yeah.
the Bengals defense. And last year, it was a mess for most of the year. Early in the year, they were making plays. The defense was to keep them in it, even though they were giving up a ton of yards. I think you said it. Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt looked a step slower last year, but they still made a lot of plays. You look at their stats and you're like, wow, they made a ton of tackles. They made a ton of plays. They played almost all the every game, every minute, every snap of every game almost. I wonder, there was a lot of reports of them both being banged up last year that could have affected it. We know the defensive line was banged up last year. We'll see how it all gels this year. I'm still worried about the secondary. The safeties got burned a lot. Cam Taylor-Britt looked the part, but outside of that, there wasn't much in that secondary to get too excited about. So we'll see. New year, you always say it's hope season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Bengals, they'll be in the mix for sure. Tough division. Who knows what's going to go on with Cleveland? You never know with Deshaun Watson in that offense. Sometimes they look lights out, and sometimes they look terrible. Their defense is going to be there.
They look great against the Bengals. That's where they look great. They take care of the Bengals. They take care of the Bengals.
They sure did.
And not everyone else. Yeah, look, Joe Burrow changed the city and changed the team, and I got to imagine the buzz is high just because it's going to be right now for every Joe Burrow year. They're still the third most likely team, if you look in the desert, to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC. Which feels right. It's going to be tough, but it feels about right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty wide open this year. You look at 7 or 8 teams that I think could be there at the end. I'd have to go down the list, which we don't have time for, but We have, there's going to be 7 or 8 teams in the mix. I think again, the AFC's deep. A lot, for years it was just top heavy, and then I think the Bengals showed a few years back that if you just play smart football, good defense, and make big plays when you need to, you can get there. And that's what they did in the playoffs that year. Made kicks, made enough defensive plays, and just enough offensive plays that year to get there. And they were let's be honest, they were a couple of plays away from winning that Super Bowl. So the margins are thin in the NFL. We know that. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think they have a good shot. I also wanted to bring you on. Just I appreciate you, Nick. Like we talked a few weeks back when all this was happening around the NFL, and I told you about my family situation and everything. And you were a great person to talk to when it was a difficult time, because in very Wesseling fashion, you were just like, well, I guess nothing lasts forever. That like it was great, and sometimes this is life, but you got to make decisions. And I always just appreciate you, and I know how much this podcast means to you, and obviously to me and Mark and Dan and Chris, and just wanting to hold on to that. But you also were like that's life, and you can't. Sometimes things are out of your control a little bit.
Yeah. I think it was a special thing you four created. Jordan hit on it a little bit the other day, and it, made me tear up a little bit that day, thinking about what Chris meant to her. And I've had other people reach out over the years on social saying some similar things. And it's very sad to see it go. And I think it was Mark on some podcasts I listened to outside of the year around the NFL that would talk about, we know this isn't going to last forever. At some point, we are going to, it's going to come to an end. Obviously, I wish you guys had a few more years running, but I'm excited to see what Mark and Dan have coming for us. Exciting. You're off to a good start. You've had some good guests. I think probably number one on this list is talking right now.
Oh yeah.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. And obviously I'd love to contribute to whatever you're doing in the future.
I'd love it. The unbridled confidence is why, look, hey, the reality is when it came time for best man, there's Nick Wesseling. And I think it was just because for people that don't know, not only do you look the most like Chris, you're very different from him because he used to love you. You created your own. It was like you created your own alternate universe, Nick, that you live in, and it's a beautiful world. And I just like to be part of this alternate universe. I know your brothers probably have mixed emotions about being part of it, even your wife maybe sometimes. But I know Keisha loves it, and it is really cool. You guys went to the Reds game recently with Keisha and Lincoln and all 6 remaining Wesseling brothers. So that, man, when I saw that picture, it reminded me of the Super Bowl picture. But of course, your brother Mikey wasn't there. Eddie wasn't at the Super Bowl, I don't believe either. And so it was all the brothers. And
Eddie made it.
Oh, he did. That's right.
Yeah, Eddie made it there.
And it was all the brothers and Lincoln and Keisha. And so, man, I just know, and at a Reds game, man, that I know you must have felt Chris real strong that day. And it's awesome that she's coming to visit you and that you guys come together like that.
Absolutely. She's got a home anytime she wants right here in Cincinnati, but she's doing great. She's killing it with her job and what she's doing with some of the media and editing. So I'm happy for her. Obviously it was great to see her in Lincoln. Lincoln's getting big fast, and he's a little athlete. I can't wait till you're talking about him post game on Sundays, 15 or 20 years from now. That'll be pretty awesome. Or maybe he'll be wearing the badge right here at Cincinnati one day. He's a little soccer player, so
he's built.
Let's hope he can keep that little athlete in him, and we'll see what happens down the road.
Built like a soccer player, like you,
yes,
like Wes, who was great. And when I saw him doing some baseball drills, that hit hard. It was beautiful. It's hard to put into one word all those feelings because it's bittersweet, but it's amazing as well. Not bittersweet though to talk to you. I love the unbridled confidence, not just in your soccer team and your great looks, but also in your ability as an analyst. So we're going to try to tap into that more throughout the course of the season, Nick, but it was great to have you on. And that's it for this show. I want to thank Patrick Claybon for helping me out, drafting all the clones, the large-scale conflict between replicated individuals. And thank you again, Nick.
Absolutely. Heed the call, Greg.
Heed the call for sure. Till Wednesday. See you next time.